Welcome back to Beauty Marks Podcast. My name is Elizabeth Savillon, and on today's episode, I have a special guest, Rebeca Negron, and we'll be talking about self-doubt and just comparison and a little bit more. So let's just get right into it. So on today's episode, I have Rebeca Negron, which I am so excited. How are you, girl?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for being on today's episode. I've actually known her for about 7 years. I met her in church, in youth group.
Such a long time ago, right?
Yes, we were babies, honestly. So, and over the years, it's just great to still be in contact and follow up with each other and everything like that. And so she's amazing. So I just wanted for everybody that doesn't know you, like, can you say a little bit about yourself, what you're passionate about?
Yes. Well, first of all, I'm so honored to be here. I'm so excited to be here and sharing with all of you guys, all the listeners. So my name is Rebeca, and I right now have a social media marketing business, and I'm just passionate about helping just female business owners just simplify their social media strategy. They're so busy, and a lot of the times they're like, I don't even know where to get started. And so I just love helping bring strategy to these women, to their social media, kind of just bring a plan to what they have, what vision they have in their minds, because every woman has like a vision of what they want their business to look like, and I just want to like facilitate that and help them just reach that. So that's what I'm passionate about.
Yeah, and you're doing amazing. The work that she's done on so many brands, and you've had a lot of experience, right? So like you worked in other companies to before you started your own?
Yeah, so I've had like a very wide range of like experience. After graduating from college, I got an internship with a small marketing business or company, and basically just did social media for the most like random businesses, from like a roofer to like a lawnmower company to like a realtor, just getting experience. And then afterwards, I worked a lot with like churches with marketing for them, social media, strategy, all of that. And then last December, I was very like in a place of I didn't know what I wanted to do like in the future, and should I do my own thing. And it's funny because I never really wanted to like do my own thing. Like I was fine having someone else tell me what to do, and I was just fine with that. And then around November, December, I remember being in a car ride with my husband, and I was like, babe, like, what do you think if I did this? He's like, seriously, I've been telling you to do this for like ever. And I'm like, really? You think I could do it? Like, do you really think I could do it? And so I basically pitched it to one of my friends that has a company, The Dream. And I was like, hey, can I do your social media for free for, I don't know, like 6 months? I'm like, I want to do yours first to see if like I can actually help you and I can actually make a difference on your social media. And then I'll, promote myself to do it to other people. And she was like, yeah, like seriously, sure. So then we did it. I love it. I still love it. And then in last April, I decided to go and promote myself to other businesses. And that's what I've been doing ever since.
That's so good. And what's crazy about it is that you're launching that also, and stepping out during what was going on during the time. And I remember you posted about it. You're like, I don't know if this is the right time to be
Oh
doing this, but like
God.
that's such a big leap that you took. And I'm so happy to hear that things have worked out for you.
Thank you. Honestly, the day that I posted, because I was supposed to launch, I think March. I think I said I wanted to do it in March. And then that's when we first started hearing about COVID really like being, in the States. And I'm like, okay, should I wait? And so then I postponed it to April, and then it was getting worse. And I was like, if I don't do this now, I'm never going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because the day that I posted like my official launch, I literally sat in my room and like got teary-eyed and got emotional because it just felt like I've had it in my heart for so long, and just sharing it to the world, and I got such great feedback. I just got so emotional, and Isaiah was in the room with me, and I was like, babe. Like I was just so emotional because it means so much to me, and I love what I do. So it was definitely a leap of faith.
I know. And he's like, you should have started earlier.
Yeah. He literally was like, what if you did this months ago? I'm like, you know what? Like I'm doing
It's
it now.
part of your story. Hey, so,
Exactly.
so that's exactly what we're talking about today is kind of taking the leap, self-doubt, the fear of, starting something and all of that. So can you just go more into your story of challenges that you've had to get to where you are today?
Yeah, so basically just growing up, I was never the person that was like, I knew what I was gonna do when I graduated high school. I never knew what I was gonna do. Like, I grew up in church ministry, like my parents are pastors. I loved church, but I didn't know if that's really what I wanted to do. And so growing up, I'm like, there's this pressure, not from my parents, but the world, like school. They're like, where are you going to go to college? What are you going to major in? Like, and I'm like, how do I know what I'm going to do for the rest of my life at 16? Like, I
I
have
know.
no idea. And until this day, I think it's insane to put that pressure on 16, 17-year-olds when I feel like certain 30-year-olds don't even know what they want to do for the rest of their life, you know?
Girl, the truth.
Yeah, like honestly. And so I remember just like not really knowing, and I had that insecurity of like, I don't know what my passion is, I don't know what my purpose is. Like that was always a thing for me, was what's your purpose? And I'm like, I don't know what my purpose is. And so I remember going, I think it was my junior senior year of high school, and I thought I was going to go into physical therapy. Like I literally looked at a school for physical therapy because I'm like, I don't know, medical, they make money. Like
Yeah.
sure.
Oh my,
You
I can't imagine you doing that. That's what's funny about it.
No, me neither. But I actually went online and was like, physical therapy majors, like
Mhm.
Googling it. And I remember being in the living room and my dad was literally like he was like asking me, like, what do you really want to do? And I'm like, I don't know. I like this and that. I've helped around in church with like girls ministry, women's ministry, or like young girls ministry and youth and all this stuff. And I enjoyed that. Like I liked giving ideas. I feel like I'm very vocal. I'm like, this I think would work. I don't think this would work. And my dad was literally the one that kind of nudged me and was like, that's marketing. Like I feel like you could do marketing. I'm like, marketing? Like Google, what is marketing? Like back in the day, it wasn't what it is like now, I feel like. But so then I Googled it and I'm like, yeah, I think I could do that. And he was kind of like encouraging me and kind of like calling out what he saw in me. And then I went to school for marketing. And even still, like going into school, I'm like, okay, what do I want to do with this? Do I want to work for someone else? Like, do I want to work for church? Do I want to start my own thing? But like I said, I never wanted to start my own thing. I felt like that was so overwhelming for me. I'm like, I don't want to like be a boss to anybody. Like, I
Mhm.
just want to like do me and that's it.
Yeah.
Um, and so I feel like just through the years, I tried different things, like being a part of certain events and helping that. And I'm like, okay, I don't like this. I like this. And I feel like that's how you kind of start like, okay, this is what I like doing. But I feel like growing up, having that, like, what's your purpose? That's such a big statement. And it's kind
Mhm.
of, or a big question. And it's like, I don't even know how to answer it now because I feel like it's not that it's always going to change, but I feel like it's going to evolve like as I get older, like, so I feel like I'm just right now focusing on the now. And yes, I have goals and stuff like that, but I don't want to be like, this is Rebecca's purpose. Like, this is what I'm going to do for 40 years, you know?
Yeah, that's a
So,
lot of pressure. And I talked about this on another podcast about people want to like they don't know where to start when it comes to like what I want to do in my life. And I think it's looking at what you're naturally good at. That's like always a good place to start. It's being like, okay, what do I like to do? What are
right.
things that I'm good at naturally? And like how can that eventually, if I wanted to be a self entrepreneur, like how can that make me money? If
Yeah.
that's the route that you're going.
Yeah. And I feel like, I don't know, I feel like I saw other, even friends, like other women that are entrepreneurs. And I'm like, well, my personality isn't like yours. Like, I'm not this, like, what is it, a three? Everyone's like, oh, I'm a three. Like, I'm
The
this and this, and you know
Enneagram
what I
or
mean?
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I don't like sleeping. I like working, whatever. And that's great for a lot of females, but I'm not like that at all. Like, I enjoy being alone, like my alone time. I get overwhelmed. So I have to like watch for, who I hang out with or where I go or like how I spend my time. So I feel like I thought, oh, that's just not for me because I'm not a three and I'm not this like crazy girl boss, I just, and I feel like that's probably why I X'd it out because I'm like, I don't fit into that model. But then I was like, you know what? Like, I feel like I could do it with my personality. Like, I feel like I could be an entrepreneur and I can create my own rules and I can say, well, I'm actually a six and I get overwhelmed by, a lot of like certain things. And but I could still do it. I could still be an entrepreneur. I could still like, have my own business. And I feel like just taking it slow, like I said, taking it day by day. Like the thought back in the day of like having someone, like having an assistant or having like someone else helping you, like stress me out, because I'm like, that means that I have to manage them, that means that I have to do this and that. But like I'm just gonna take it day by day, and I feel like that's what's been doing good for me. So
Yeah, and you've gotten to know like what works for you, and that's
exactly.
fine. It's like you are still an entrepreneur doing what you want to do, you know? So I definitely feel like that's a normal thing, especially starting something because you're also trying to like look at what other people are doing, and then you're
Yes.
like, okay, but that doesn't work for me. So like, how is this gonna work? And all of that. So you have to like
You know
seek
what's
guidance.
crazy is I feel like in the beginning of quarantine, because so many like people decided to like pivot, and they were online courses was like the crazy all like everywhere in the beginning of quarantine, because we couldn't go out anywhere. So I would buy, I was purchasing like everything because I
Mhm.
want obviously to educate myself and I want to learn, obviously, like still do. But I was like, okay, it doesn't work for me like that. That doesn't work for me. I have
Mhm.
to do it this way. And I feel like the more the more quarantine happened and the more I'm like, okay, that doesn't necessarily work for the way I want to do it. I realized that that affected me back in the day when I was like, I would cancel myself out because I'm like, well, I don't do it that way. So it's probably not going to work. Like I don't look at it that way, or I don't work that way, or I don't act that way, that's it's probably not in the cards for me to be an entrepreneur. I should probably just be an assistant, or I should probably just be an administrative whatever. And if you are that, that's amazing. This doesn't matter. But I'm just saying I always canceled myself out, like just naturally. And I'm like, you know what? No, like I feel like God places certain ideas in your head for a reason. That's not you. Like God gives us those ideas of like, I think I should do this, and just go for it and do it in your own way. Like, yeah. So I feel like, and then all it's like that. And then also a side of like, I saw other people do it and I'm like, I could do that. Like I literally could in my own way, like not that I could do it better. Everyone has a different way of doing it, but I'm like, you know what? I feel like I'm just gonna do it. I'm just gonna try. Like, and I just took the leap of faith, and decided to go for it. Because if you overthink it, you're never gonna start,
Yes,
ever.
and it will never be the right time or the right
Never.
day or anything. There's going to be always something
Yeah.
going on during
And
the
to this day,
timing.
I have that in my head. I'm like, okay, never gonna be the right time. Just go for it. Like,
I
yeah.
want to follow up with something to go back to something that you said about kind of like that you've done that mentality of like, well, like I'm not like that, so it's not going to work for me, or like kind of like, oh no, I couldn't do that. Like, do you feel like that's been like that since you were young, like that you would kind of cancel yourself out, or that's just like because of the maybe the surroundings or
Yeah, so I feel like I almost did it on myself because I never grew up in an environment where someone was like, you can't do that. Never. I feel like my parents and even my family was always like, whatever you want to do, like whatever your dreams are, But growing up, like with my dad's church being a pretty big sized church in Orlando, I felt like I had to kind of not cancel myself out, but always talk about like what's wrong with me so I could relate to someone. I know that sounds crazy, but I was always like, I just wanted to relate to people because I felt like certain people didn't feel like I was relatable or something like that. Like this, and this is me like high school, like middle school. I'm like, oh, okay, that's fine. My dad's a pastor, but I do this, isn't it? You know what I mean? Like I always just talk so negatively about myself because I wanted to be relatable to other people. And I felt like that literally just carried on within my head. And I just always focused on just the negative side of me. Even if I had so many people surrounding me and telling me like, you're amazing, you're going to do great things, blah, blah, blah. Like I was like, yeah, but in my head, I just because I wanted to be relatable. And I know that sounds such a bad idea, but when I'm in middle school, I'm like, great idea. I'm going to be relatable. I'm going to just talk so negatively about myself. It just stuck in my head. Like, honestly, it did. And I carried that with me for so long, like just in my head, like, well, I can't do it. I don't know. Like, and no, and like I said, nobody told me you can't do this. Like, thankfully I never had like, that verbal like abuse, you know what I mean? Or someone telling me like, no, you can't. Everyone was telling me I could, and I just didn't believe it. Like I didn't see that in myself. And I don't know, I felt, and I feel like as I got older, I took it back to, I did that to myself. Like I told myself, like, if someone was like, oh my God, you look so pretty. I'm like, oh, really? Because this is not. And I tell them all the things. And I remember when I first met my husband, he was like, why are you saying that? Like, just take the compliment. Like they said you looked pretty and you're literally going off about how you had the worst morning or something. And it has nothing to do with the compliment. And I'm like, I've done that for so long, you know? And I
Yeah.
feel like now I'm just taking it day by day, like I said, but I'm realizing like I could do it. It's just I'm doing it differently. Like I said, I'm not this, like I knew I was gonna be a girl boss since I was little. Like I never thought that, you know, but I knew what I enjoyed doing. I knew that I enjoyed like strategizing. I knew that I was so chatty with adults as a young girl, you know, and I wasn't afraid to say my opinion. And um I feel like some women need to hear that, you know, like you're not going to do it the way that person does it. And it's okay if you're shy, or it's okay if you're a little bit like reserved. Like you don't have to be this crazy outgoing, like, you know what I mean? Like if God put that idea in your heart, do it and do it your way. And you're going to get a following because there are so many other women that are not like each other, obviously. So there's a following for you, you know, there's room for everyone to be successful. And I feel like the more I told myself that, the more I'm like okay with the way that I do things. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
don't know.
No, no, that's so good. Honestly, I'm pretty sure that someone listening, and even myself, like I feel like I relate to all that you said because I was raised in an environment where my family has always lifted me up, has always encouraged me, has supported every one of my dreams, even as crazy as they have been. But they, at the end of the day, I would always say the same thing to myself. It was like my own self talk with myself. And I completely, when you said about like you sometimes would make yourself want to be relatable, I completely get it because when people tell you like their upbringing, sometimes it's like, okay, do I not have a story then if mine wasn't as bad or as, toxic or whatever the case may be? But no, it's like your story is your story, whatever that looks like. And that doesn't, you don't have to, you can sympathize with someone, but you don't have to be like, yeah, and like one of them, to be like,
Yeah.
well, my upbringing was like this, so that's so relatable. So I'm pretty sure that you're not the only one that has experienced that. And so thank you for sharing that because I'm like, wow, that's literally so true. You want to make your life so much harder. And it's like, no, like that's not the case. I did it to myself. Like I'm the one that's negatively speaking about myself
Yeah.
or
It's like self.
allowing. Exactly.
And it's so crazy because I remember in high school, like almost feeling bad for like what my parents worked their butts off for. You know what I mean? Like I almost felt bad to say certain things or like, oh, we're going here, we're going there. And I never was the type to like show off or anything, but I was like, oh yeah, we're going here. Like, oh yeah, we're gonna do this. And I'm like, you know what? My parents worked their butts off like for this. And I want to work my butts off for my kids to experience more than I ever experienced. But I remember I don't know who told me, but I was like, I don't really have a story. Like I don't have like a crazy past. Like in high school, I had my first boyfriend at like 17. Like I never wanted a boyfriend. So I never went through emotional like, oh my God, he broke up with me. Like, so I just felt like I never had something to say. Like I never felt like I had this like impactful story because I just, I don't know. I never, that wasn't my story. And someone was told me, they were like, no, but that is a story. Like you're learning, not that you learn from other people's mistakes, but you decided that you weren't going to have certain, situations, or like I didn't have a boyfriend. So I didn't feel like I had all these like crazy drama that all these, my friends had in high school. And I felt bad for that. I'm like, should I get one? Like, should I go in a toxic relationship now? Or like when,
Yes.
you know? And I
Yeah.
just feel like, even looking at my nieces now, I'm like, no, like, you learn from other people's mistakes. Like, that's not your story. And it's okay if you don't have this crazy traumatic story. Like, thank God for that, thank God for that. And then, like, grow from it. And that is your story, And I don't know. I just feel like I just always was like, I have nothing to say. Like, oh, that's not for me. I was always in the background behind the scenes. And I don't know. I feel like and it's okay if you don't like being like the center of attention, but I feel like God has a plan for all of us, and you're going to shine in that area. Whatever God wants for you, you're going to do it, but you just have to let him do it, not cancel yourself out and self-sabotage your whole life because you feel like you can't. So
Yeah. Yeah, because you're the only one that thinks that. It's like you know that God has a plan, and it's like if you just allow him to, you will see where he can take you. And like
yeah.
even what you said about comparison in the audience of something, that's so important to remember. It's like you have a target, meaning like you have people that naturally come to you and care about what you have to say and
Mhm.
really want to know more about whatever you're talking about or whatever you're selling or whatever it may be. So instead of canceling to be like, well, everyone's doing it, it's like, no, like you're doing it in a certain way that someone's going to want to hear from you versus someone else. So there's
Exactly.
always going to be a place for you. The market is not that saturated for you to not be in it. Like,
Yeah, and if you think about it, like how many people, I don't even know the number, but how many people are in this whole world? Like we focus on like our city, because so many people are in our city, but it's like, okay, there's so many people out there, and like they will attract, like the people that are meant for you will be attracted to you. Like, and it'll just come with time. And I had to take that out of my head because I would just always like see other girls and I'm like, oh, but they're already doing it. They're doing it better. They have an assistant. They have their own this, and that. And I'm like, no, but I have something to say too, like, and I have it my way. Like, I feel like someone's going to relate to the way that I do things and the way and what I like. And, because they like it too, you know what I mean? And I don't know who it was. I had a conversation with someone about like a specific YouTube star. I can't remember who it was. And they were like, I don't even know why she has so many followers. Like she just posts this and she has so many, whatever. And I'm like, cause that's her niche. Like that's her market. Like we just like to see her like vlogging her life, like that's an audience. But then you have another YouTuber that's doing their own thing and they have a ton more like audience members. So I'm like, if like I keep saying, like if God put this idea in your heart and in your head, it's for a reason, and just like walk in it confidently, do it the way you want to do it, and you're gonna see people come and be, either like a client or just purchase from you or follow you. Like you're gonna see that. Just be like true to yourself. And when I decided like I'm gonna be true to myself, like I'm not gonna dress like this because that's just not me, and it'll show because it'll show
mhm.
if you're trying to be like somebody else and they're like you're phony.
Yes.
And even with like my business with marketing, like I'm gonna do it my way. Like I'm gonna post these things and I'm going to do my email this way, and I'm not going to just work the way they do it because it doesn't work for me. And I would always kind of like bang my head against the wall that I'm like, it doesn't work for, like, it's not working. And it's like, well, because you do it differently. Like it's okay that they do it that way, but but I feel like it's still a learning curve, and I feel like the more I grow, the more I'll learn how to do things differently. So
Yeah, it's like what you said earlier, like to tell someone at 16, to have it figured out, like even at your age, even towards 30, 35, like you're still trying to evolve and learn and grow into certain things. And you're like, oh, wow, I didn't think I was going to be doing this 5 years ago, but here I am, so you just kind of learn. But I love how you said it. It really started really with your mind shift, like your own kind of like self, like, wait, like, why am I saying things like that to myself, like when I can do this, so it started with you saying that.
but you don't even realize like how everything is all mental. Like everything is all mental. If you literally tell yourself you can't, you won't do it. And if you tell yourself like I'm gonna do this and it's gonna be really good, and that not being cocky, like you being confident in yourself and saying like I'm gonna do it and I don't care what anybody thinks. I think I was also so afraid of like people's opinions, like oh my god, they're gonna think I'm so lame. Who cares if they think you're lame? Like if you're gonna, I don't know, I've had this like mind shift just this year really, and
Mhm.
it kind of sucks. I feel like, not that I'm getting older, I mean I am getting older, but I feel like someone should have slapped me across the face like 4 years ago, because I was just so worried about what everybody thought. Like what are they going to think? Like, oh my God, I'm starting this. They're going to think I'm lame, or they're going to think that like I post too much, or that I'm not going to make it. Or what if I fail? Like that was also a thing, like fear of failing. What if this doesn't work out? What are they going to say about me in the next like event or party that I go to? Like, I don't want to show up, you know? And I'm like, but what if it does work out? Like, but what if like it does become successful? Or what if like my dreams do come true? Like, so basically, I recently was telling Isaiah this. I'm like, I feel like I have this like fear of like the clock is ticking. Like we all have clocks on our backs of like when we're gonna die. And I'm like, I just want to make sure that I squeeze the most I can out of life, and that I do what I feel like God has called me to do. And I say it's like a fear because it's like every day I could wake up and be like, oh, tomorrow I'll do it. Or like, oh, next year I'll do it. Or, but look, COVID happened. Like COVID literally changed everything for everybody. So I feel like I currently have this like fear of like, my clock is ticking. Like everyone's clocks are ticking. Like, what are you going to do with your life? Like, and you're going to blink and be 40. You're going to blink and have kids, and it's going to be way harder. You're going to blink and be a grandma. Like, what are you going to do in those years, you know? And I don't know if that's like, you know, someone's probably going to listen and be like, oh, that's a horrible outlook on life. But
What?
for me, it's like people run on like money, and they run on, I want to be rich and I want to have these cars, and yeah, I want to be like wealthy, but I also want to like have just like a satisfaction on my life. Like I feel like I squeezed everything that I could out of life. And so I was telling Isaiah that this past weekend, he was like, I don't feel like that's bad. I feel like that's like your, you know, your outlook. Like you don't want to be 40 and be like, crap, like I didn't do anything because I was so afraid of everybody else, you know?
Mhm. Yeah, and I think that that's always what people say that they regret
Yeah.
doing is giving so much of a care to other people's opinion to dictate about their life. So it's like, am I doing this right? And you want like the affirmations of people, like, is this good enough? Like, it's like,
Right.
no, like you live your life. And I think that's very important. Like what you said, I agree with that. Because at the end of the day, you want to look at life. We don't know how many years we have on this earth,
No.
you know? And when you look at someone's life when they pass away, everyone always looks at like what they achieved, like kind of like what they
Right.
did, the memories that they had with their family, the good,
Correct.
you know, like they look at those things, not like wasting time. Like, you know, people look at the overall picture. So, I mean, I agree completely. I think that what you're doing, time is still going to pass, and it's like,
Right.
why not do stuff that you love? You know, you
Right.
maximize your full potential that you have and all the gifts that God has given you. You know, because
Mhm.
I would want when my life ends to then be like, God, I used whatever gifts you gave me, you know, and
Exactly.
I here's what I have, you know, not
And
like
I never want to be known for like the girl that was afraid, you know, because
mhm,
I feel like when you talk to your friends or even like people that you meet, and you can kind of express like, or you can kind of get from people like, oh, she's very fearful, or oh, she's super confident, or whatever. Like, I never want, and it doesn't, like, I never want to be known for that. And not that, you know, you should live your life so that people can know that you were this like specific person, but internally, you know, like I was afraid, or internally, you're like, I thought too much about what this person that probably doesn't even care. Like, you know, they'll see it, and if they do comment, whatever, and if they don't, whatever. Like, I think it was growing up because, you know, of my like dad's like position. You had a lot of eyes on you, and you were reminded of that. So you, like, obviously you never want to act up in public or whatever. And I feel like I always took that with me. And I remember Isaiah was like, I'm like, babe, don't, like, I don't want to do that because of this. Like, I felt like people were watching, and he was like, no one's looking at you. Like, almost like nobody cares, just do it. Like, you're
mhm.
so afraid of like the ghost. I don't even know who is saying anything about you. Like, no one's actually caring.
Paparazzi's there. Like,
Yeah. Like, he's like, trust me, no one really cares about what you like, and not in a good way. Like, so just do it, you know? Like, we honestly create this whole narrative in our head that's not even real. Like, it's not real. And so that's what I've been focusing on this year. I mean, my business is such a baby. Like, it's literally a couple of months old. But I just, again, like I said, I just want to take it day by day. And I I know that in being like consistent and following what I feel like the ideas that God has given me, I know that that's going to take me to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And I've had to remind myself of that, because if not, I'll go back to the little girl that's like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And you're just like, I get paralyzed. I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't even know what I want to do tomorrow. You know?
Seriously. No, I love that you shared that. And honestly, I feel like so many people can relate to your story. And just knowing that this year has, I think that has opened the eyes to so many people to be
Yeah.
like, if not now, when?
You're,
Like, you just do whatever you have had to do and like pivot into that. Because at
right.
the end of the day, like, just like we were talking about, like, with even the way that we see ourselves is so important because we allow those thoughts to stop us when on the outside no one even cares, but also at the in other people don't see us the way that we see ourselves, and sometimes people see us way better than we
Right.
see ourselves and are like, they're like seeing a challenge. They're like, wow, like this girl's so confident, like she's gonna be so successful, and then we're over here like, I can't do anything, no one's gonna care what I
Like in a corner.
yeah, and then it's like, no, like we are not called to live in fear, you
Right.
know? And I feel like when we live in that confidence, it shows, you know, it shows in the way that we are, the way that we act. And we
Yeah.
don't, at the end of the day, we care about God's, you know, what he wants for our lives,
Mhm.
what other people, you know,
Right.
want. So
Right.
thank you so much for sharing. Is there anything else that you would want to, for anyone that has the, you know, you shared all these tips throughout the podcast, but is there anything that you just like feel like this is the one thing that has helped you to get to where the mindset shift has happened today?
Um, well, I want to first just remind that anyone listening, like, God has placed something. He has placed something in your heart, an idea, or just like, man, I wish I could do this, or I could do this better, or something. God has placed something in your heart. Like, go for it. Like, honestly, go for it. Sit down, plan, put worship music on, put any type of music on, and just like write out. And I think when you write it out, it becomes more real. You're like, whoa, that wasn't just a thought that I had. That was God. Like, and he's literally giving me all of these ideas that I could do. Like, start there. And then every single day, just remind yourself, like you just said, if not now, when? Like, honestly, we never know what's going to happen tomorrow or tonight or this afternoon. And again, don't live by fear. Like, honestly, I didn't want to scare anybody with the whole clocks on our back thing, but we do have clocks on our back, and like, we only have this one life to live. Like, we literally just one life. And what are you going to do to squeeze everything out of it? Remind yourself every day, like, God has placed this inside of me. I could do it. I'm going to do it differently. It's not going to look like everybody else. And go for it. Like, don't be afraid. If you're afraid, you're never going to grow. You're always going to stay right where you are. And I just feel like anyone listening, like, just sit down, plan, write it out, like, and just have it in writing and write it in pen. Yeah, write it out in pen. Like, do it, and don't be afraid, and don't think it's way over your head, and don't think that it's not real, and don't think that the ideas that God gave you is just you. It's not, you know? And yeah, I just think that your mentality is everything. And once you recognize that, you can kind of own it, you know, like, as in, like, you take that thought of like, oh wait, no, that wasn't God. Like, that was my self-sabotage. So like, take ownership of your thoughts and say, like, you know what? I'm gonna do it. Just go for it, everybody. Go for it
Do
today.
it. Go for it. Start today.
Now.
Yes, we are cheering you on. Whoever is listening to this, we are cheering you on. So thank you
Yes.
so much, Rebecca. I really appreciate you sharing your heart, and I'm excited. Where can people find you if they want to connect with you?
Yeah, so my Instagram, it's becca.abigail. Find me there. I post tips, social media tips, and also just fun lifestyle stuff with Isaiah. I love making videos of him, so you'll find that too. But yeah, becca.abigail.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Rebecca.
Thank you for having me.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and follow me on social media at Elizabeth Savvy. I appreciate all your support. And if you have 1 second to leave a review, share it with a friend. It would mean the world to me. So stay tuned for next week's episode, and I hope you guys all have a great week.